And here we are again. I am Zander, our chosen Nolen. This is the Zander channel. We're moving on with Critical Thinking, Chapter 11. Put your emotions aside. So when you react to circumstances that are based on your emotions or biases, or would you react to circumstances that are based on your emotions or biases? Because a lot of people do that. Looking for ways to communicate better with those around you. Would you like to do more in your career? Can you develop your ability to make rational, meaningful decisions and conclusions by incorporating the skills of critical thinking? The conclusions can often be one-sided without these capabilities. Criticism may sound like a personal attack on you personally, rather than an invitation for discussion and constructive interaction. So, when you're emotional and somebody gives you some sort of criticism, you take that wrongly because you're in the emotional state of frustration or anger. So anything that comes at you from another person, especially if it's critical, is not going to go well, right? You're not going to be able to better yourself when you're sitting in the emotions. So let's look at how to improve critical thinking skills so you can take these tools you need to set aside the strong emotions and make smarter decisions in any situation. One is to critique yourself. In develop critical thinking skills, the very first and most important step is to become a critic of your views and your actions. You cannot grow without self-reflection. By questioning yourself why you believe something, you can break down your thoughts. You need to justify your feelings when you do this by logically analyzing your answer and providing a clear argument that reinforces what you believe, emotions aside. You can stand back and observe how you react to circumstances as you focus on yourself. During this self-reflection time, important questions to ask yourself is going to be, why do I believe this? Is this true? What is my evidence? May I think of examples that prove to be true or false? Am I emotionally attached to this specific idea? And what is the reason? The identification of your talents, your shortcomings, your personal preferences, and your prejudices is another component of becoming a self-critic. You can understand why you're approaching certain situations with certain perspectives when you know this information and you actually take these questions to heart and always ask them for any situation. Maybe not if you're being chased by a saber-toothed tiger or something like that, but there is no emergency in most situations that actually shape the way we think. So when you're aware of your point of view, if necessary, you can go beyond that point of view. 2 would be listen actively. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth. What does that tell you? It's almost impossible to think and listen at the same time. To become a critical thinker, you need to be able to listen to the ideas, arguments, and criticisms of others while they're speaking without thinking about your answer. If you do not take the time to listen, you cannot properly comprehend the knowledge that someone is trying to convey. If you're speaking, you cannot hear because the stuff that's going on in your mind is already formulating something. You cannot take any other input through the ears. Or when somebody is speaking, you automatically come up with an answer before they're done talking, mostly because emotions are involved. Hearing enables you to feel empathy. You can understand their stories, their struggles, their passions, their ideas when you hear someone else's perspective. Listening actively enables you to understand what somebody is trying to tell you because it pushes the conversation until all parties can reiterate what the others are trying to say. You should be able to repeat back to the individual what they said after a different fashion. You don't parrot it back necessarily for word, because they're using tonality, right? So what are the parts of speech communication? The parts of speech are going to be the words themselves, right? We're going to have the tonality, and then we're going to have the body language, okay? So body language makes up a lot of it. Tonality makes up the most, depending on who you're talking with. But the words themselves are only 10 to 5% of the conversation. The tonality is a lot more. The body language, which we don't really use much, especially in today's day and age of the computer, is a body emotional response to the thing that they're talking about, right? You need all three of these things to have an objective understanding of what the person is trying to convey. Now, number 3 here is analytic knowledge. At all times, no one considers objectivity. Your joy, your rage, your sorrow, or other feelings are too strong most of the time, especially in today's society. You don't know how to control them. Sometimes you're unable to be considerate on the core issues at hand. Critical thinking demands that the data before you are thoroughly examined, whether it is knowledge in your head or information shared by others. First, evaluate what's being said to analyze information and make sure you understand it clearly. You can then dissect and evaluate all of the arguments, including your own. Now, number 4 is communicate non-violently, which means don't raise your voice, don't change your tone to an angry tone, right? You need to communicate non-violently. You should not be triggering the other person with or having the intent to trigger the other person with your words and your tonality or your body language. If you're unable to communicate in a peaceful, productive manner, critical thinking is no help at all. You must first understand valid logic when responding to and evaluating the arguments. You then need to interact productively with the other people involved. Compassion, reflection, cooperation are the pillars of constructive interactions. If you approach the situation with empathy instead of protective, you approach it with a calm attitude. If you observe without bias or personal commitment, you will observe your claims and the other claims. Teamwork occurs when everyone approaches the system with a caring, open-minded approach to solving the problem. Number 5, we're creating foresight. So you must create foresight. Foresight is the ability to predict a decision's future impact that is critical to the success in all aspects of your life. Your plan to see what the job outlook is and what the area is like when you go elsewhere. Likewise, it is prudent to analyze the effect that decision if you are moving to another company. It's going to be far from some of your talented. Is it going to be too far for you or some of your other people that may be moving on? Is it going to be too far to travel? Are you going to lose customers? What are you going to gain? Before any decision is made, the potential impact should be carefully weighed. Number 6, do your research. All of the information that is thrown at us daily can be overwhelming. But it can also be a very powerful tool if you decide to take things into your own hands. Go online to start reading about it if you have a problem to solve, a decision to take, or a view to consider. The more knowledge you have, the more you will be prepared to think about the things and find a rational answer to your questions. And that's the positive mindsets. Okay? As a review, that's the I'm putting the emotions aside. Chapter 12 is about the positive mindset. If you stay in the negative emotions, it will always cloud your judgment. And I'll have another book on how the mind works. Plenty of other books on how the mind works in later. I don't have those written out yet. But when it comes to critical thinking, emotions are to be put aside, especially if you know that they're impairing your judgments. When you react to someone's criticism or anything for that matter, any type of speech, there's no reason for that other than the emotions are too much at the time that you received the criticism. So you need to rein those back in. They are your emotions. You control your emotions. If you say that you make me angry, that's a lie. What they said at the time triggered your anger, or you were already in an angry state, and it exacerbated the situation of your emotions. You control your emotions. Why would you give someone else power over your emotions? That would give them the ability to control you through your emotions. So, let's stop that.